So maybe you haven't really ever thought about women's rights and leaderships back in the colonial and era of early republic when America was just getting started, but actually that's a rich time for women's history, especially here in South Carolina. And we have some really famous women we often learn about: Eliza Lucas Pinckney in school, and we have Elizabeth Timothy, who was actually the first female newspaper publisher, and she was down in Charleston. And when we think about those women and the really amazing things that they did, we have to remember that they still did it inside of their own conservative beliefs. So while they were very ambitious and they wanted to make their voices heard, they were also within that patriarchal structure. So they were really getting power and ambitious for their families more so than making women have the vote or anything like that. So in this exhibit, we learned that women, sometimes we want to paint them as to something that they're really not. They're flesh and blood people, and they have their own desires and their own leadership that they want to do. So we have women like that in the exhibit, and we look at the power that women had during the American Revolution, where we talk about the personal as the political, which is a modern quote, but actually works really well for revolutionary women who had the power to not buy British goods during the American Revolution. And that was really powerful. So women around that time are going, well, if I don't buy tea, I'm making a political statement. So have you ever thought about it in those political terms? And again, when we win the American Revolution and we look at women's lives as we go into the early republic and the idea of the American woman and who that is, the idea was that we wanted these mothers, because that's what people back then thought women's natural role should be, would be mothers, to raise the next generation of men, of learned men, to take power. So they had a place in society and they were affecting it, but it wasn't a place where everyone could be heard. And we think about the wealth of South Carolina. Well, that was built on the wealth of the enslaved. And actually, the majority of enslaved people brought to South Carolina in the beginning were women. Male laborers were often sent off to the sugar colonies. So the majority of field laborers, by a small amount, were actually women. So the wealth that brought women like that and the great men we think of during the colonial period was made on enslaved women who not only had no voice, but had no legal rights whatsoever. So it's important when we talk about those accomplishments that we put them in the context of the time and we see how far and how hard we have to go to get those rights and those positions of leadership.